Good evening again, Dash viewers, and thanks for joining us for this second segment of this program, The Prime Time. Tonight we're talking about education, we're talking about social insertion, and we're talking mostly about professional insertion, especially after training for university students. According to an official letter that was addressed to the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, by the President of Students Association, or the Defense of the Rights of Students Association, 70% of Cameroonian youth who leave from universities are either unemployed or underemployed, doing jobs for which they were not trained. This poses a problem owing to the fact that many persons are looking for jobs and many people are going in for training which were not theirs, and the eternal problem of what we call in Cameroon concours or public examinations. Tonight I'm receiving a former student. She's still a current student, but a worker at the same time. She's called UT Laura. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. And just in front of her, we're having a special guest who had to do away with many things in order to meet us, Dr. Krishna Sharma. I hope I'm pronouncing it
very correctly.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
You are a consultant when it comes to scholastic affairs, so everything that concerns studies, and of course you are equally a lecturer and a best-selling author with many books, about 42.
Thank you.
Thanks for being there. So I'll begin with now. Professor Sharma has been on the soil of Cameroon for 5 years, you say, yes. And you've had the opportunity to work with different Cameroonian students. You've actually been to other countries across Africa, Uganda, South Africa. You've been in Asia, where you're from, and of course the United States. But I'll begin with her because she's a Cameroonian, and perhaps when we're talking, you'll be coming up with ideas on her issue. Now, you are an MBA student.
Master student in marketing and communications.
Master students in marketing and communication. And you are currently doing a job. And you began doing that job ever since.
Yes.
How did you get into it? And you might want to go equally into the details of that job without publicity, of course.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Now, when I started my HND, 2016, I was opportuned to do that at Futabe University, and there they have a model, the school to work model. So for the first 1 year, I was placed, and luckily where I was placed, trainings from both ends, I was retained by the organization, and I've worked there ever since till now.
Okay. Now, you had to handle your finance by yourself before getting that job, like, you know, paying your school fees and meeting up with the other bills?
Definitely. You know, we are in Cameroon, and for every student out there, the biggest goal is being able to help their family with their expenses, especially student expenses. So I was the one in charge of handling the budgeting, financing, maybe transportation, feeding, and all the rest. When you're in secondary school, you're basically a baby because they manage everything for you. Time, you get up, it's time for school, and then they even pay transport and everything. So I had to do all that by myself. And it pushed me because I had to be innovative. I had to start thinking of the small businesses that I can do around to have money and all the rest. And I think that that's one of the major problems that university students face. Because
we'll definitely talk about the problems students face, and of course you share with us your experience on that. Professor Krishna, you've been in Cameroon for 5 years. And you've been opportune to work with students, and of course right now you are a consultant with the St. Louis Institute that's training nurses, doctors, and all those medical practitioners in Cameroon. Now, I spoke with you before this program offline, offset, and you told me we need to look a little bit on what is called competence-based approach. Mm-hmm. From your experience on the African continent, particularly in Cameroon, is that the main problem of education as concerns universities?
But first of all, it's multifaceted. When we say education, it's not just about a degree or a paper. it relates with so many stakeholders and as well as different industries. If we just simply talk about education, let's take her example. She went from her A-level to university degree, right? Yes. How many people were involved in making decision? Number one, her teachers, when she was doing O-level, A-level, they were supposed to give the exposure to her so that she explores where her interest lies. She shouldn't be going to school, maybe doing marketing, and while doing a degree in marketing, she realizes, oh, I don't think I like marketing. I think I like social work. But since she wanted to do a degree, she entered. I'm just assuming, okay? Then the parents, how much exposure they have given to the kids to make the right choices. Then the student themselves, how serious they were. Then when they come to the institution, did the institution try to identify their strengths and their interest? It's not about just getting a piece of paper. And I've met with many students, they do a course, they go out and they do something different. There may be two reasons. Number one, they themselves did not have the interest in the course they did.
Then why did they find themselves, you're a consultant, you talk a lot with students, why do they find themselves doing what they're doing, whereas they have no interest in it?
Peer pressure and lack of exposure. So I'm in A-level and I go and I say, okay, my friends are doing computers, let me go and do computers. What I'm going to do in computers? Is it coding? Is it hardware? Is it software? I have no exposure, but just because of peer pressure and I did not have early exposure, I just choose a field. Number two, maybe the institutions are not doing the things right. In academically, we use something called triple helix. Triple helix means the institution, the academic institutions, the government bodies, and the industry. These three need to work together because at the end, we as an academicians, we are not the real evaluators of the students. It's the industry that's going to evaluate whether the student has gotten the right skills or not.
So how is this connection supposed to be done? How is this cooperation between the academics, the institution, and the government?
Number one, everything has to start from the institution. As an institution, when we make the curriculum, do we consult the stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders? The government, the regulatory council, the alumni, the current student union, the employers. Then we talk to different associations across different countries to find out if we are preparing the right curriculum. Then the delivery of curriculum, do we have qualified staff? Or we have the same people who did a bachelor and the master's and then they are teaching in the same institution, they have no exposure. Do we have international exposure? When we say international exposure, do we have staff who studied abroad or work abroad and came? Do we have staff who is a foreigner and came? It's all about cross-pollination of knowledge and capacity building. And lastly, are we following up the students? Are we doing the tracer study? Tell me how many institutions in Cameroon have gone ahead to do a tracer study to find out where their alumni is? They need to find out because as an institution, if I prepare...
The guys we've trained 2 years after, where are they? How are they performing?
Yes, how long did it take for them to get a job? What are the skills they studied and found it relevant? What are the things they feel that we should improve as an institution? What are the challenges you are facing in the job?
Maybe I should ask you, you too, Laura, do you have any follow-up from the institutions you've been into?
Definitely, definitely. I think especially they have been asking me how I'm coping at my job, what are the things that I need to improve on. And
did they help you in getting your job?
Yes, definitely, because, you know, there was a mismatch of both theory and practical. And so for the practical part, we're placed on internship, but for a longer period of time of 12 months. So I was there for 12 months, literally doing all the work. After 12 months, retained. Thank God for the institution. After 12 months, I was retained. And what I've noticed is, even after my HND, they've always kept on asking me, like, what are some of the difficulties I'm facing? How can I solve them? And all the rest.
So if I understand very well, your school provided the framework for the internship?
Yes.
Okay, and after you had the internship, the institution retained you?
Yes.
Okay. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, that's a good news from her institution.
But according to your findings and your experience, they're very rare.
They're very rare. They're very rare. And even the students, once they become alumni, they're not very much active in improving themselves. They do an alumni party where they come, they meet and they drink bimbo and they go back. But what they're supposed to do, they're supposed to have a discussion within themselves. Okay, what are those skills that we need? Because see, education system and the requirement of the market keeps changing. So they are supposed to identify those gaps that they are having, talk to the institution, so that institution organizes a seminar, workshop, or capacity building training. They go for the alumni meet, they have a 2 days of nice workshop, they catch up, and then they go back.
Okay, I would like you to define in the lowest terms possible this issue of competence-based approach. We talk a lot about it. I think most Cameroonians must have heard about it, but concretely, what does it mean and how does it happen? It's just simply.
Okay, simply, you are an anchor.
Yeah.
There are many institutions training people to be an anchor, right? They may have good marks. They may have good marks in camera handling, maybe different subjects like communication skills, research methodology. But how many can really do the anchoring while engaging the audience? That's the competence we are talking about. So our focus should be, what can you do
well,
instead of how much did you score on the paper. That's all about competence based. When you are here as an anchor, you also have to do human resource management, right?
Sure.
But that was not emphasized when you studied. You have to do your research, but in a different way. You need to play with the data, you need to find the data, you need to put the statistics in a way that people understand. If I say there are 75% of chances that there will be rain, what does it mean? 75% of the country will have rain, or 75% of rain we were expect? I mean, you need to define, right? But are these things taught to you in the school? No, because they are talking about outcome. Is this done? Yes, check. Is this taught? Yes. Course is covered? Yes. But what is your competence? If I take you and put you in the field, can you do that? And that's the reason I'm thinking you and all the employers who are watching the show certainly will confess that most of the companies, when they employ the graduates, they firstly take them through a 1 month of training or 15 days of training. Am I right? Before they put. Why is this training required? Why can't we as an institution produce the students who go straight in the field and do their job? Okay. That's why we are talking about the competence-based learning.
I think it's very clear and it's beautifully defined. Laura, Professor Krishna is bringing up something. I was discussing about that with Nadine Mebune, whom you know very well. She's an anchor here, and I think you've been with her before. And we were talking about this issue, this Cameroonian issue, which wants that students go to school barely because they want to obtain a certificate, as he was saying, and who are now more focused on the marks succeeding rather than getting the skills and the knowledge that will help them perform. You buy that? Is that what you feel equally experienced as a student?
Yes, most times I think that's the reality of education here. Like I was saying, time management is something that is lacking. I think that most of the problem draws from time management. These students, they go to school, they have to manage a lot of things, their social life, partying, and doing a lot of other stuff. At the end of the day, they are unable to balance because, you know, during the first year of university, you have the notion that I have to joker, I have to enjoy, I have to have life in general. So you end up spending much of your time doing the enjoying part, and then you forget to maybe catch up on the homework, the projects, and all the rest. And what happens is, at the nick of time, you start focusing on getting the work done, as in cramming and reading and just reproducing, and not enough time to really manage and really reproduce that in a better way. So at the end of the day, we focus only on the papers.
But as a student, is there not undue pressure that is overexerted on students to be more of, should I say, brain crammers than doers?
Yes, there's a lot of pressure for us to repeat what has been said rather than reproduce, innovate, create out of what has been learned. So I think that's another pressure that we students face, because most times we have some lecturers who come to class and then you're trying to give out information, they tell you, that's not what I said, you know, but that's what I understood. So at the end of the day,
so word for word you must give out what?
Yeah, what, a lot of repetition.
Professor Krishna, some of your colleagues, lecturers, teachers, and are some of them not equally outdated?
Mm-hmm. They are, and she is raising, we as an academicians, we must take responsibilities. Number one, we need to take our ego out of our body and keep somewhere else. Sometimes few of us, when we have a PhD, we start feeling too proud. But PhD means knowing so much about so little. That's all PhD is. Am I right? So we need to stimulate their minds so that they can find solution to the problems and not just sit and cram. It's when we talk about higher education, what is high in higher education? It is the ability to solve the local problems. If you can't do original research and publication, not the research that just goes in the files and stays. No, research to solve a problem in the community. If we can't do the community engagement, I mean, we are just glorified high school. We are not institutions of higher education. There's no use of having an institution if communities around us are not benefited. So I think I won't blame the students for that. It's our responsibility. We are not good enough to stimulate their minds. And for that, we must go out and learn. We must learn how to teach. Nowadays, we focus on student-centered learning. It was the old time when they were lecturers, because there were no books, there were no printing machines. So people will come with just one copy, read for their students. That's why they were called lecturers. But now that time is gone. The data is available all over across the internet.
That's an important point you're raising, but we've noticed that, Laura, most youth, despite the availability of all the resources on the internet, notably, because nowadays, I'm one of those who say you don't really need to go to school in order to learn things because you can get them on the internet. It seems like we really go to school nowadays to get just a certificate. We have tutorials, we have books, PDF files, and many things, but it seems just about 2% of the youth are using that. Am I right?
Yeah, true, definitely. I feel like...
Whereas they're always online.
Always online, they are distracted. You know, they choose their apps that they want to use, like WhatsApping with friends, telling the latest gist rather than going on YouTube. That's why most of the problems you face, we have a lot of people who don't know how to use the computer. A lot of young graduates who don't know how to use the computer. But that's the simple thing. You can go to YouTube and maybe check, how do I do a PowerPoint presentation? How do I use this? How do I use Word? But you find that a lot of them cannot do it. Why? They spend most of their time on WhatsApp, you know, Facebook, giving the latest gist, the hottest pictures and all the rest, if I must say.
Is it because they have not found out their competence? Because we are talking about this competence-based approach issue as a means of getting socially and professionally inserted. Is it because they might be big, schooled, but they haven't found out their real competence? Because I think competence should go with passion.
Indeed, of course.
Should we say it's because they haven't found out?
Yes, and also because they are not inquisitive enough. I'd say that with all boldness. You know, you only learn when you want to learn. You only go to an extra mile to find the information when you want to, especially when we come to Cameroon, the context. Even when you tell somebody that, okay, fine, we're seeing it right now, we can go to YouTube and check this out. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you want to do public speaking. Okay, you're doing chemistry, but you want to switch to public speaking. You can go online and watch videos of public. How many of them would take out time to actually go online to watch video of public speaking? How many? So I feel like much of the problem also comes with inquisitiveness, the ability to want to learn more and know more, even without the help of others.
Professor Krishna, do you equally work with parents?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, I learned that Tiger Woods, the golfer, popular golfer, when he was 4, he was offered a club by his father because his father noticed that he was constantly watching golf on TV. And he was constantly with sticks trying to do, and it's probably like, this young guy, he could be interested. He bought him a club. And today he's what he is. What do you tell parents on developing the competence and the passion of their children? How should it be drilled up so that when people grow up, they easily...
They need to give exposure, number one. Like the example of Tiger Woods. Well, fortunately, he got interest in golf. What if he would have gotten interest in cricket and his father didn't know how to play cricket? He would have not even identified that, right? Because his father was not a cricketer. But if as parents we take our kids to different people. Like, we all have different relatives. Someone is doctor, someone is engineer. When we take the kids to their houses, do we engage them in such professional discussions? Do we initiate that, okay, my brother, you're an engineer, why don't you tell her something about how beautiful your field is? You meet a doctor, please tell her about how beautiful the things are in medicine. As parents, we may not know everything, and it's very okay, but not making an effort to give the right exposure to the child is a problem. Like, it's more like garbage in, garbage out. We can also not blame, put all the blames on institutions of higher education. How much exposure as parents we are giving. And number two, we need to help them find their interest. We don't have to force. Like, in fact, there's a big problem in India. We Indian parents, most of the time, we put pressure on the kids that you become doctor, you become engineer, and that's why you see there's so many suicides in the kids. That is a problem, and I'm certain similar things happen even in Cameroon. But once we remove our ego of, I know everything, I'm your dad, I'm telling you do that, you do that. No, you don't do that. You help the child explore the interest. That's the reason, if you see the child starts growing in the nursery school, they just learn how to read A, B, C, D. They grow up, next class they learn about their country, the environment they are in. They use those letters to identify the geography, the history. Then you give them all the others, you give them mathematics, biology, economics, so that they understand where their interest lies, and then you start putting them into specialization. The same happens with parenting. As parents, you also need to give them opportunity to identify their passion.
Okay. Now, you studied, you say you studied Masters
Marketing and
Communication. Is that what you always wanted to do?
I think
or you were pushed by circumstances into it?
I was pushed by awareness, let me say that, because in my HND and top-up degree, yes, I studied logistics, transport and logistics. But I've always been someone who is passionate, especially on the field. I remember in offices, I always want to go and talk to somebody about a new product. So after having recognized that's something I'm good at and something I would like to pursue, then I decided to switch to do marketing and communication.
I would like you to have a critical eye, no pity. Be as objective as possible. The curriculum you were presented, the program, were they good enough?
I'll be honest, especially for...
Did everything you study, does it serve your purpose there?
No, not everything, because theory and practical there are always going to be some lapses that you see, and then you have to refine on the field. Because when we went there are some things that we had to readjust and say, hey, this is what they told us, but here it doesn't work like that. And that is why internship and placements are very important, because you get to judge and start having the realization before having the real platform to commence your job. Because in real terms, the curriculum that we have do not really show you the real world, the real working world. So it's only when you go there and then you start readjusting and say, okay, I learned this, but I might have to do it another way.
I asked you that question before coming back to him because it's his domain. It's the last question of this talk, because it's not a debate. We're learning much. You've been here in Cameroon for 5 years.
Yes.
What can you say about the curriculum, and how should a good curriculum be drawn so as to push students to be able to get into profession after they leave?
If I talk about how should we draft the curriculum in the right way, it always begins with the stakeholder consultation. That's the bottom line you do. As she said, she herself confessed that when she goes to the field, she finds it's totally different or somehow different from the curriculum. It clearly means your curriculum is not correct. There shouldn't be malalignment, no, it should be aligned. It means there was no stakeholder consultation done. If a student can tell that this is different from what I'm doing in the field, if they would have consulted the professionals, if they have consulted the council and the employers, they would have told straight. You teach the students, and a student goes to, for example, if you do a job somewhere, maybe you do a job here, you may also need to look at the finances, isn't it? You may need to look at the marketing aspect. You need to look at the human resource management. Maybe you need to make a project plan where you have to bring out your entrepreneurship skills. But are these modules in all these courses? No. Maybe management, yes, they study. But entrepreneurship is something everyone must know. Even a doctor, our doctors taught marketing and the economics. No, but don't they go and do their private practice? When they do, are they not going to look at the finances? Are they not going to look at the marketing or entrepreneurship? So I think once we involve the stakeholders, mainly the ministry, the employers, the technocrats, the alumni, the current student association, the teaching staff, and we do the benchmarking with other countries, then we'll be able to have
It's such a huge work.
it is. A curriculum is not a joke that you sit and make. Even students should be given this opportunity to even give the input. And with time, I wish if there is a central curriculum for the whole country, that will be far better, because like she selected a school, but did you compare the curriculum of different institutions? No, you didn't, right? No one does that.
Okay,
So I think if we go through those steps, we'll be able to have better curriculum.
Well, it's so interesting. If you're still around, we'll definitely continue this talk another day.
Sure.
I think it's very interesting, and those who are watching us should be learning more. The stakeholders and even the students should have benefited from this program. Thank you very much, Professor Krishna, for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you very much, UT.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.